Well, good morning, everybody. Trying out this Bluetooth mic. So I'm about, I don't know, 8 feet away from the camera. So I have to see how it works. Like I said, it's the first time I've used it. Give me some feedback. Um, Talk about some updates on the little switching layout, some stuff I've been doing, and maybe a slight, small tutorial. I've got this little tripod sitting up on a couple boxes to sort of get a view, and I've got this extra light, which is that glare you're seeing up here in the mirror, so you can see on the dock. Got the forklift on there, got the steps over here. So the main thing I've done is static grass. Now, the green around the building, I take that as more lawn. So that's 2 millimeter darker green, like they were taking care of that. This out in here is a mixture of 2 millimeter, 4 millimeter, dark green, light green, some yellow. It's more like overgrown weeds. Uh, the ballast is done on this section right here. And I am going to show you how I do turnouts, because a lot of people get really nervous about ballasting around switches or turnouts. And so I'm going to show you how I do it. And I've got a little guardrail here, which I'm going to talk about right now. So this is the truck loading area on the bakery. I think a reasonable or plausible supposition would be that there would be a guardrail right here to keep the trucks from hitting the silos. So I'm going to add one in there. The pavement continues on out here, but I have to make sure I can't continue because I have to make sure I have clearance here. That hole there may be too close. I don't know if I'll be able to put anything in that one. But I'm going to build a guardrail right here. So I'm going to show you how I'm going to do it. So this is where the silos would be back behind it. So starting, I had to leave a walkway into the silos. So starting here, I measured 8 feet out, rounded the curve, and I drilled holes. I'm going to use some very small rod that I have. It is 16-inch evergreen styrene 222. So nothing like research. Luckily I have a guardrail close to me. I could have walked here, gone up through that way. At this time of year I'd have had about 40 ticks on me every time I got here and back. So let's see how high this thing is. I should have bought a yardstick. Would have been a little easier. It's like it's about 28 inches tall and maybe about 16 inches to the bottom of it. The post itself is a little bit taller than the railing. So I'm not going to model a traditional guardrail like this. One thing, I don't really need the curved end on it because there's not really a worry of a truck hitting it. It's going to be more like a homemade guardrail that the maintenance crew put together. All right, so I'm going to tell you what's going on. The rod that I was going to use, the 222, scales out way too big. It actually would be like over 20 inches in diameter for the posts, closer to 30 inches. Problem was I already drilled the holes in the styrene to fit that. So I decided I'm going to go ahead and use this 211. That scales out for your steel pipe about 6 inches, which will be right. So my original thought was I was going to do this off. This was not glued down yet. I was going to flip it over upside down. I was going to put it the correct height, shim it up, and I was going to glue the rods in from underneath, and so they would all be the right height all the way across. Wouldn't have to worry about cutting them off on the top. I just cut them off at the bottom. Well, since I drilled the holes way too big, that didn't work. So I decided to go ahead and glue down the parking lot. And I used a push pin to go down to the foam, and I now glued these in place. They are way too tall at this point. So I'm going to take a piece of styrene or something and lay in there and cut them all off at the right height once I figure out what that's going to be. I thought the other way would be a little bit easier, but I didn't drill the holes the right size. Once I put that piece of styrene, that styrene rod there, the 222, I knew immediately, this is way too big. This is going to be out of scale. So went back to this method. So again, I'm letting this dry right now with the styrene cement. After they're dry, I'll cut them off to the right height. And then my plan is to just use a piece of this stuff, and to just, because it's real flexible, and to just make the curve there and glue it into place, and then to paint it all with a micro brush. So we'll see how it comes out. You may be as surprised as I am. So this is the type of guardrail I'm going for. Again, not a highway guardrail, just something that like a maintenance crew might have put up on the site itself. Just posts and one rail across the top. So this is what I did. I made a little jig to slide underneath it. So when I was going to position and glue the rod, I knew it would be the right height. And after it was all dry, I cut the posts off. In hindsight, I should have soaked the tubing in a rod in hot water to soften it up a little bit. It might have been easier. This is just a little piece of very thin scrap styrene. I used when I painted it to keep the paint off of the blacktop. And this is finally what it looks like. Of course, I have to weather it. You see that white hole in the end? That's the hole that I can't put one there, so I'm going to just fill that in with black paint so you won't see it. So before we get into the ballast, we talk about the roads a little bit. This is, of course, the joint compound. Ended up okay. After I sanded it, had to carve out the flanges. Engines run on everything. No problem. At least my Atlas GP38 has run. I haven't tried the little Kato switcher yet. There's little places that might be able to touch up a little bit. Then I just painted as where I usually do my pavement. Right here, hindsight being 2020, I should have had this parking lot come on out a little bit farther. I may just trim this little piece off right here so it don't have that like abrupt blend. I do have some gravel here, and that gravel is Woodland Scenic's fine ballast. I have a mortar and pestle that I grind it up, make it finer, so it doesn't just look like ballast. I don't know if you can see the difference or not, but that's what I did for along here and for along there. And this is real dirt that I ran through a blender in my backyard. And that's also underneath all the static grass. So let's get into the ballast now. I'm just going to focus on the turnout. This one right here. I use Woodland Scenic's fine ballast, gray blend. Yes, I know there's real rock products. Arizona rock minerals might be better. This is what I've got. This is what I'm going to use until I'm out of it. Then I may switch. So take a little bit of ballast and scooper again. I'm just focusing on the turnout. I'm not going to do the whole thing. But I go ahead and put a little bit of ballast around turnout. See, remember I've got those switches, so real life it would have ballast around that. I'm not burying it in ballast, but I'm also not, I don't want any bare spots. So I have a couple little paint brushes, and I'll work it down in there, try to make sure there's nothing in there. I'm doing this sort of a quick and dirty thing because there's a million videos on YouTube on how to ballast track, but most people say, make sure you keep the ballast away from the switches, and it's a good point, but at the same time, I don't want a bunch of bare spots around the switches. All right, so that's good enough for now. You don't really have to stress about it. You can always clean up everything later. I've got these little eyedroppers for N scale. I think they work pretty good. I've got isopropyl rubbing alcohol, as you can see in the background. Sort of soak it. I don't really like to mist stuff. I know like if you get a big drop, the ballast will scatter. That's probably more of a problem with the Woodland Scenic stuff than it is because it's lighter than it would be Arizona Rock and Minerals. But right there where I had a little bit of scatter, I'll just put a little bit of ballast back on it. I don't have to wet it again because the rubbing alcohol is there will take care of that. I'm going to get my eyedropper and I'm going to, again, I use Woodland Scenic cement. If you want to make your own, I think Ron Trains and Things talks about making your own. I think Boomer makes his own. Again, one of those things, it's like $10. It's available to me at a hobby shop where a lot of stuff isn't available. Okay. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to set the timer on my phone for 15 minutes. Every 15 minutes, move these out of the way. When that timer goes off, I'm going to come over and I'm going to move this thing. Okay, so I've got a little bit of stuff in the way. I might have to get my hobby knife to get that out. I also don't want it could be in the switch itself. Every 15 minutes, I'm going to come over and do it 3 times because I don't want it to be locked in the same position every time. So I'll walk away, I'll work on something else, timer goes off, I come back and say, oh, time to move the turnout. I'll do that for about 2 hours till the stuff's pretty well set up. At that point, I'll just basically sort of let it dry overnight. When I come back the next day, if I see some spots I missed, I'll touch it up, and that's how I balance my turnout. That's how I did all these over here. They all work fine. And I don't have any gaps in the ballast. So, all right, that's how I do it. So I've got my flame-proof pants on. Go ahead and flame away. I'm sure someone's going to tell me I'm doing it all wrong. That's usually what happens when you try to do tutorials. That should do it for now, I believe. Oh, the cat is doing well. Putting the food up at night so the raccoons don't get it, and he comes running across the street every morning to get fed. So, but he's doing well. So thanks everybody for your comments. Everybody stay safe.